live. So what is, Bridget, the story on that? I mean,
Councilman Coleman just sent a message back that he's on his way. He had it on his calendar for later this evening for some odd reason. So, squeeze it around, that's good.
okay.
Let's see, so, permission to purchase a new vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we were just talking about, this is a new vehicle, not a replacement vehicle, for our new health and safety coordinator. This person will be out on the road traveling, not just to our other buildings within our entire complex and city, but also be going out onto job sites to oversee, to make sure people are using the proper soil techniques to make sure that they know if they need shoring, don't need shoring, if they're putting the trench boxes in appropriately. So they'll be spot checking our employees out on projects. So we did want them to have a vehicle. It's we don't need a four-wheel drive or a large pickup truck or anything like that for this position, but it would be a 2022 Ford Escape that is on state contract for $25,527.31, and it would be a new addition to our fleet, and we would certainly get it onto some sort of rotation once we understand the miles that would be involved on an annual basis. But Kelly can actually speak more to the position itself. Literally, David just started 2 weeks ago.
Last Monday did it.
Last month?
A week ago. Yeah.
So he is here getting acclimated to all of us. He spent, I think, his first week out traveling, visiting the different departments and understanding what it is they do and what their needs may be.
Facility tours and going through and trying to get an understanding of what the processes are. He's most familiar with things at the service division. He came from Tireman Auto. He was a regional safety guy for all of the Tireman locations. So he's got his feet wet. He's doing his first forklift training Thursday morning.
Now, when you say, Bridget, he goes out to job sites to confirm. I assume those are sites where our employees are. I assume contractors.
Correct. He'll go to our own job sites where we're performing work, such as when we're performing water taps or putting in sanitary sewer taps, making sure that if it is a deep tap, that they're using the proper trenching and shoring mechanism, that they're doing their soil testing as required by
OSHA, but it would fall under PERS, Public Employers Risk Reduction Program.
Yes.
Same playbook, but we report to PERP through BWC.
But I mean, he won't have to go to every job site. He'll just go to.
No, he'll just be spot checking.
Okay.
Could be another set of eyes and ears for all the department and division heads and their supervisors, just another eye on a particular project, especially if they understand that the project would involve either something unusual, some confined space activity, or going out and doing training out on site out at public service or out at the fire division for confined space, or out at the wastewater treatment plant, lockout, tag out, whatever that may be. So he'll be traveling around, doing trainings, putting together programs, booklets, guidelines, documentation that we're required to have, as well as then overseeing our service utility forces to making sure that when they're out on the site performing something, that they're doing it correctly. And it could be as simple as setting up cones properly when you're parked off to the side of the road, unloading mowers, for instance. And if it's somewhere where we have to park along a curb, making sure that they're setting up the safety zone correctly.
Kevin, this is a position. This is a new position for us. Kelly was recounting the history just as you came in. Actually, we authorized it on a part-time basis a couple of years ago. That didn't work.
19, yeah.
And then it came in the budget this year for a full-time thing. It's something I kind of questioned, but that's because I'm an ogre. These guys convinced. Well, and John Eckel was real strong on it too. That this is really a needed thing.
Yeah. And we've had an outside consultant for many years, but we feel like we're a little underserved and overcharged, frankly, for safety training. I don't feel like it's been as thorough. And we get somebody different every time, and sometimes they don't do a good job of presenting a training topic or whatever. So we just feel like we could better serve our employees with somebody on staff.
So what departments would he cover then? Obviously service,
All
right?
of them.
All of them.
Yep.
So would there be, it sounded like, would it be then police and fire too, would there be
Yes.
any appropriate training for them
There will
too?
be some stuff there, ladder inspections, for example, harnesses that need harnesses need inspected once a month. So anybody that's getting lowered down into a
Confined space.
confined space, the harnesses have to be inspected once a month, not getting them. So there will be like PPE training, personal protective equipment for like bloodborne pathogen training if the police officers get to an accident scene first to make sure that they know what proper precautions they should be following if there are bodily fluids or something to that effect. So they also do, you may be able to help us with fit testing. We had a round of fit testing when COVID started to get proper PPE for the police officers. So there will be some stuff for them also that's in their new Lexington policies. That they have some stuff that training that they need done, inspections that need done, stuff we're trying to get, in-house.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we always saw there was a need for it. It's just, I'm kind of, even though I do the labor beat, I'm kind of familiar with this area, and I was concerned that there wouldn't be a full-time need.
Yeah.
But these folks pointed out there's all sorts of training we don't do. Often.
Guidebooks, documentation that we need to have on hand, supposed to have on hand, that is supposed to be reviewed by the staff. So this person can help all of that get put together and get trained on it and be familiar with it, sign off on it so that if, God forbid, there is an incident, we know that somebody has trained them, that they've signed off, that they've had the training, and the city is protected in that respect. But hopefully, nobody has any accidents or issues because they are following the proper protocol.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you guys know, I came from the world of construction, right? I mean, every job we have has a safety person on it.
Sure.
Checking not just equipment, tools. I imagine the city's got quite a bit more than just a construction site, right? To go through, so. So that's what this is, it's a small, or no, you said Escape, right? This vehicle.
Ford Escape, yeah.
Ford Escape.
Escorts are smaller than an Escape. I'm not
I don't know
sure
if they do either.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting this, but I just wonder, is there a hand-me-down that,
There currently are no hand-me-downs.
I don't want to put them in it with the new guy, but
I think the
if
hand-me-downs that
someone
we're
asks.
getting rid of are the ones for planning and zoning when their new vehicles come in, but those are the ones without air conditioning,
Oh, yeah, those are great.
Yeah.
That'd be great to put the new employee in that one.
insect
Things are
infestation
really
issues.
I didn't realize how bad they were. They
Yeah.
described all the issues.
Yes, the
they
bugmobile, yes.
Yeah.
had. So, well, I'm good with that. Are you?
Yeah,
okay?
I'm fine with that. I think it's suiting for the position, especially if there's nothing else available. It makes sense to have that.
And again, the truck doesn't need to be a four-wheel drive pickup truck, so
Right.
we're making sure that we're fitting the truck with the need, or the car with the need, so. Not asking for more than we can.
Does a vehicle like that have some city of Perrysburg?
Yes.
Logo type
Yes,
thing.
what we'll do, it'll be very similar to utilities and service. So now that we have our new branding and our new logo, that's what will go on the side on the door panels of
Okay.
those, and we have that done after we receive delivery of
Because
those.
I think I see some of the planning and zoning guys drive around in those jalopies we gave them. I don't think some of them had some.
They have a seal on it, but it doesn't really say, I mean, within the seal, if you're up close and you're, stopped, you can see that it says City of Perrysburg in it, but this will be more clearly marked.
Okay.
So everybody can do the right thing when they see the safety guy coming, right?
Right.
Sure, they should.
Here he
We're
is.
already
Yeah.
having that.
Here's the police.
Yeah, right.
Correct.
Well, you might as well do the update on the hiring, because I know Corey's been involved in that. He doesn't,
That is correct.
and I
So-
actually got an update today from Jonathan, but
Yeah, so last week we did have first round interviews for the utilities director position. There was 2 qualified applicants that we interviewed, and we have scheduled second round interviews next week for the same 2 individuals, but they'll be in front of Mayor Mackin, myself, Michelle Hunt will be there, as well as Councilman Smith is trying to arrange his schedule so that he can be present as well. And then if the mayor deems that there is a right person for the right seat, he will then, we'll schedule a committee of the whole meeting before the next council meeting, and bring that person forward and have all the council be able to ask this person questions. And then the mayor will ask for confirmation of an appointment. Standard process.
Yep. I heard both candidates are good.
You said 2 individuals?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of them you'll know,
Perfect.
because I know you
Good.
did the wastewater treatment plant tour on that
Yeah,
god-awful
yeah.
cold day.
Yeah, that was actually a great day to be
I need
out
to
there.
put someone else in charge of my calendar.
Okay. That's all right,
Myself
I
is
was-
not cutting it.
I was a
All
little
right,
late.
so Kevin, are we ready to adjourn?
Yeah. Done.
Sorry, I was too busy being related to that.
Oh,
Took a while.
thank you. Yeah, it does take a while. Then they'll edit it down tomorrow, so you'll see a condensed version.
Oh, yeah.
We did do items 4 and 5.
All right, so we're already.
Because the Director of Public Utilities, I know you've been involved in that, so you know what's going on.
Yeah, I do. Do you guys know who you're going with?
No, we're actually having a second round interview before Mayor Mackin and hopefully Councilman Smith next week. And
Same candidates?
Same candidates.
Okay.
And so we hope the mayor is satisfied with at least one of the candidates and makes a selection, and then we'll set the committee of the whole meeting up prior to a council meeting, bring that person in, let the committee of the whole have discussion, and then during that following council meeting, the mayor would bring forth his request for a confirmation of appointment.
Perfect. I know I was pleased with both the candidates when I met with them, so I have high hopes in that position. So do you guys already approve minutes?
Yeah, we didn't. I'm good. Prior month's minutes, there's no issue.
Any objections to
No,
those?
no
Okay,
objections.
then we'll move on. Well, we didn't have a meeting last month, so I guess.
Those are awful good minutes.
Yeah. And I tried my best to make it so, this month's meeting didn't
Yeah.
happen for me. And then we're gonna do, since we're a little light on stuff, the pay
Yeah.
review.
Yes,
The only
so
thing left.
I have for you. What I did is, since we typically do these, at least since I've been here and before, I got here 10 years ago, on a calendar basis. So what I thought would be helpful for a recap is, the first page is 2021, which was kind of a crazy year since we were going through the pay band process, we were going through collective bargaining negotiations. So I kind of set out the timeline here, and this is actually how we were using it to track it internally. So it's just showing that in February of 2021, while we were in the midst of negotiations for 4 contracts at that point in time, I think. Fire was going on, police had started, but ASME hadn't started yet. The mayor gave everybody a 2% increase. No, I'm sorry, almost everybody a 2% increase. We had some folks that had just come on board as city employees or hadn't been here for 6 months yet. Then in June of 2021, after we started getting information back from our consultants on the pay bands, what they looked like, what the average actual was, the midpoints, the mayor went back and looked specifically at 3 people, 2 of which you're familiar with, because later on in the year, we went through the process of having council then also afford an increase to get them closer to that average actual salary range. And then in September, when council did approve the pay bands, you may recall that there was 2 individuals that, because the pay band minimum for one of the pay bands, actually 2 of the pay bands affected 2 employees, they weren't at that minimum. So then they were brought up to that minimum through that council process. Then during our budget process, we requested 2 additional lump sums for 2 of the same employees that the mayor gave additional raises to back in June. But these dollar amounts were going to be over the 7% that the mayor is allowed to accord in that 12-month period. So then during the council process, the budget was approved, and then I believe in January, it was either the last meeting of December, the first meeting of January, we brought those 2 back, and Councilman Smith, I believe, made the motion to accord those increases. So that kind of recaps 2021, and then off to the side, you see what the new salary is. And then getting, I'll say back on track in the sense that we don't have collective bargaining negotiations this year, and we're through the pay band situation. So then what the mayor did in 2022 is, after looking at other indexes that had come out regarding what increases were being done for OPER, Social Security, the CPI over the past year, the CPI for 12 months ended, CPI for the last quarter 2021, and what the collective bargaining agreements had negotiated for 2022. The mayor went through and did a cost of living increase of 3%, and then he did a merit increase for almost all non-bargaining unit personnel. And that was a combination of his conversations, of looking at performance appraisals that were done the first quarter of the year. He accorded those. And then we have one person that has what we were calling an equity adjustment. So that would give that person this year a 6% increase when taken in totality. And that individual was actually making less than the group of 3 captains that he supervises at the fire department, based on their collective bargaining agreement. And so that's one of the ones that Kelly is very cognizant of and is going to be tracking as we move forward with collective bargaining, that we do have a couple positions that are non-bargaining that are kind of getting close to getting compressed with the people that they supervise, so we're aware of that. So we'll be mindful of that going forward. Doesn't mean that at some point we won't need to come back to this committee and council and say, due to these collective bargaining agreements, you know, the mayor's going to need to go beyond this dollar amount that he's accorded, so we may have to come back to you at some point in time and ask for another equity adjustment. But so far, he is several $1,000s above the 3 people that he directly supervises. And we know what the collective bargaining agreement is for next year. So we think that that will still make that person okay, and they'll still be making more than the people that they supervise. But we'll just be on top of that. It's the same between the police lieutenants and the police sergeants and our support services manager.
When did the 2022 raises become effective?
So they became effective,
Oh, they're already effective?
yes.
Okay, because it says proposed on our thing.
Yeah, and that would be the new salary. I guess when I pulled my spreadsheet off, I didn't update the date. But those were actually, yeah, I believe it was the end of April. I can email the exact date. It was within the last month.
Oh, within the last month, though?
Yeah, yes.
Because I was just looking, the increases came in February 2021. If these came in January 1, 2022, then technically you're exceeding 7%.
So what we've always looked at that 12-month period as a calendar year. That's the way it was done prior to me getting here, and Kelly could certainly explain to that. When Nelson Evans was the mayor, he always kept everybody that was non-bargaining unit, he would accord increases in the first quarter of the year, unless it was a negotiation year, and then he would wait till that negotiation was ended, and then he would make his increases retroactive back to the beginning of that collective bargaining agreement's date, which was, I think, typically March, first full day of March. So we've been consistent in doing it on a calendar year.
And I just want to make sure, so there were increases in February of 2021, another increase in November, and then another increase?
In 2021, because we were going through, like I said, negotiations had started, we also were still going through our consultants, Zashin and Rich, looking at the non-bargaining unit salaries, pay bands. So the first increase that the mayor gave of 2% was to all, I'll say, tenured non-bargaining unit staff. As you'll note, there's several members who had just come on board with the city.
Yep.
So they were not picked up in that initial. Then in June of 2028, 3 individuals received an increase. And you'll note if you go across, and for instance, one is our zoning inspector. If you go across, you'll see the mayor gave 7%, which is allowable in the calendar year. Then during the budget process and with council approval, as the code states, city council awarded an additional lump sum of money onto the base salary based on what came out of the Zashin and Rich pay band study.
Yeah,
That's for the 2 people though, right?
that's for Cody.
That's for, and if you go down and you look at Chief Jones, there's 3 people that received increases in June of 2028.
Those are the proposed for this year.
And then,
Stand corrected, you're right, okay.
and then in September of 2021, because of council's actions which were outside of the mayor's scope and authority, there were 2 individuals whose salaries didn't meet the minimum starting pay in the pay band in which they were placed in. So one was the deputy zoning director, and the other was our IT technician, network technician. So council granted those raises automatically when you set those minimum pay bands, at the minimum salary of those pay bands. And then we knew that there were 2 people still that were quite out of whack with what the average actual salaries were that came out of the pay band study. And so in the budget for 2022, we pointed those out to council, and then council took action on those by motion at the end of December of 2021 or the beginning of January of 2022. And again, those are outside of the mayor's 7%. So nobody received from the mayor more than 7% without action being taken by city council.
What's the, so I'm looking at this, and I think I have the same, I'm confused. It seems like there are 2 raises happening 5 months apart that are over 7%, and I thought our code was within like a 12-month period. I get you're saying it's a calendar year, but what code section should I be looking at?
266. I have to grab mine. An individual can receive more than 7% in that 12-month period as long as city council has taken action. And city council took action for 4 separate individuals at 2 different time periods during 2021.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at this increase per mayor effective 11/29/2021 and contrasting that with what's proposed new salary or the 2022 cost of living and merit increase.
So again, we have always looked at increases on the calendar year, the 12-month period that the mayor's office has picked since before my time has been a calendar year.
Okay.
Because the code doesn't specify what that 12-month time period is, but historically, and I'll defer to the human resource manager who's been here a lot longer than I've been here, it's been on a calendar year. It's not a rolling 12-month.
Yeah, I understand that, but let's just take, don't use this name in the minutes, please. But if you take Amanda Owens, she got 5% in November of 2021 and another 5% in 2022, in April or something, right?
Correct.
Well,
And in calendar year 2021, she did not go over the 7%.
yeah, I don't remember that
And
ordinance being calendar. That's.
It actually has.
I thought I looked at it, and that's why I asked you for the last 12 months too. And now I can't find it for the life of me.
Let me look, I think it's at the end. It's at the end of a section that you would not expect it to be, if I'm remembering correctly. Is it 266.15.1?
It's got the hour, that's the hourly matrix. So I'm trying to find out if it's there right now. 66 point.
I can find it, 260.
Oh, maybe it's .2, maybe it's -2.
Wage range.
Where are you going to get the 260, huh?
Did not search bar, or that use that right there, just type wage increase.
For some reason, Kelly, I can't remember what section it's in. Oh, I got it. 266.11-1.
266.
0.11-1.
Yes, .11-1. B, to be exact. It says,
If you just hit enter, it should pull it up.
shall be determined from time to time by the mayor and shall be within the rates as set forth in 266.15-2, which is the wage range table. It says, provided, however, that the mayor may only adjust the rate of pay by more than 7% in any 12-month period with the concurrence of a majority of council.
In any,
Yeah, and any 12-month period is a calendar year.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this, and quite frankly, I'm frustrated that this is not before council.
And I can only tell you what I've experienced while I'm here, with the past mayors and the current mayor. Everything has been based on a calendar year since before I got here. The
So are we just
12-month
going off
period-
prior history, or?
Well, I think in the way that the law directors have viewed this, it's not determined it was a 12-month rolling clock. It just says any 12-month period. What is that period? The period's not defined. The city in past practice has defined it as the calendar year, which is our fiscal year.
And I suspect that happened because there'd be one increase at the beginning of one calendar year, and then you come along next calendar year, there'd be an increase there. And this is though,
Typically, since I've been here, there's not been multiple increases in any year, with the exception of last year because of, I think, the coinciding of a collective bargaining year and wanting to accord staff that's now bargaining in it some amount of increase, guaranteed increase, waiting for those collective bargaining negotiations to end. Then on top of that, we were reviewing all the salaries and going through that pay band process, which kind of wreaked havoc a little bit. But the law director was very clear on that we had to go back to council for those increases that took place, that were those large lump sums.
Sure.
And that council had acted under its authority appropriately back in September of '21, when the pay bands were increased by according those two individuals who were not at the minimum rate of that pay band,
yeah, we.
by bringing them up.
I don't have any issue with those. Those were
No,
done properly.
I can certainly ask our law director, this law director, to opine on that if you would like.
Well, I don't think she should, honestly. She's one of the people I'm seeing over and over. So it's part of the people getting an increase. I guess I'm frustrated with, and I'm not necessarily putting this on you guys, but this is exactly why you have checks and balances. So when you go through an oddity, everybody's in the loop. And it's just, to me, it's frustrating that we're not erring on the side of caution. It's a conversation I've been bringing up over and over again, that we want to see these increases, whether they're below the 7%, and I've been reassured that
Well,
we'll
I
get them.
believe that increases had been given to council once or twice last year as they happened. I'm pretty sure that the Personnel Committee received the list of, from February. I can go back and look at my emails. And I know that the council president was certainly aware of what took place in September of '21.
Yeah, and I'm not even necessarily disputing that, but why are we, this new stuff that's already happened this year, why isn't, I mean, I've been talking about reviewing salary increases, up or down.
The mayor went through his performance appraisal process and accorded raises as he saw fit within his 7% for the calendar year. And we were going to report out in November, because that's originally what this committee had asked to do, was to report out this coming November. So,
Well, if there were,
So what's the annual, you mentioned collective bargaining numerous times, what's the typical annual increase in wages for collective bargaining?
in this year's collective bargaining agreements, I think all of them are 2.5.
Roughly 2.5%.
Or either 2, I think they're 2.5.
Does that include, is that wages and benefits? Does that include
No,
just wages?
Just wages.
Just wages.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, in my opinion here, I guess I'm considering there's potentially, although I'm not gonna try to point anybody out here individually, I'm seeing hypothetically in a situation, I think we got here like a potential 14% increase within a short period of time. I think that's sort of where,
And many of those people have not received raises since 2017. And I can speak for myself that that's the first raise I've got since 2017.
that's not really necessarily the issue, Kelly. It's the fact that it's designed to go before council so that there's joint effort in these decisions. That's what that codified ordinance is specifically for, in my opinion. It's not even about the backing, it's about the end around, the way I see it.
I will certainly pass this along to the mayor, but I don't believe the mayor felt in any way, shape, or form he was doing an end around by according increases within a calendar year, as his predecessors have historically done, based on the language that in the code and how it was interpreted by the mayors.
Could we reconstruct how those increases happened
I think we could through CMI.
with huge effort
I think with CMI, we
in
went,
prior years?
in prior years.
If you
we
go
went
back to,
We can get busy with more.
I don't know how much time it's gonna take.
I mean, if there were years that were skipped, we got raises in 2019, we got raises in 2009. So,
Yeah, we could reconstruct that.
Yeah,
yeah,
I just, I'm just, I'm
absolutely.
repeating myself, but I'm startled to see that someone can get 10% over 4 months.
We could.
And I
we could
understand
certainly-
the whole of the timing, and I
And they
understand it
weren't
was COVID
They
year.
weren't retroactive to spring like the unions.
Yeah, I know, but that you're still at 10% over about a 4 or 5 month period. And there could be many good reasons for it, but, and we might end up just, I don't think we're gonna take any money back from anyone.
So what we could do is we could drop in columns going back years and put in the numbers for each
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, and I think, I guess, and I'm with Corey on this thing, I think part of my issue with this is not so much a monetary increase, because I feel like with inflation and everything that's going on, and to find a competitive or a qualified individual to fill some of these roles, I know sometimes the money is very attractive, right, to find a quality individual. I think kind of what I guess what I'm sensing, what I feel that, with that amount of increase, that it wasn't discussed openly or that wasn't brought forward, like, while I may have thought we were doing something right, I almost feel that we may have done something wrong in this instance. So I'm not trying to point the finger here, and while it may have been past practice, I just think under the context and in the short period of time that these raises were given, I feel like it's, I don't know, I'm with Corey on that. I feel like it should have been brought before council, or at least discussed on the committee level. Maybe it was prior to me being here, but I don't know, that's one of my concerns with it.
Well, let us go back and reconstruct, at least from, well, we can go back as far as we want.
Yeah.
So we can at least go back
Well,
as long as I've been here.
Yeah, I think
Easy
in
enough.
prior years, it was like, we'd have sort of a one-size-fits-all increase, and then there'd be exceptions up or down a little bit. So I think that would be relatively easy for me to say, because I'm not doing it,
Well,
but,
and since I've been here, literally, last year was the strange year.
yeah.
But typically, all non-bargaining individuals are getting their increases at the same time,
Yeah.
not necessarily the same amount, but has been at a standard point in time for everybody, unless there was some exceptional circumstance that went on. And that's my recollection under Mayor Olmsted, as well as Mayor Evans, as well as Mayor Mackett.
Yeah. Well, and maybe, God knows, 2021 was an unusual year everywhere. Maybe we're not going to make too much of an issue. I don't know. Myself personally, I don't know if I'll make much of an issue over that. But on a going forward basis, I always viewed that ordinance, as I recalled it, it was any, as it said, any 12-month period. It wasn't calendar year. But it probably always met the any 12-month period because we didn't have unusual mid-year increases, whereas we did this year.
Possibly. Like I said, I'm just used to typically one time a year has been my experience here, except for last year, wanting to, kind of, in some ways, send a message to the collective bargaining groups that non-bargaining folks were going to get a 2% increase, and I feel fairly confident that that was sent to, if not all the council, the personnel committee, to make you aware of that, because we were starting the discussions, because we were just
The
getting back those
2%?
draft reports from Zashin and Rich,
Yeah.
is my recollection. And then there was, once those reports came out, and there was discussion both at the council level regarding the two individuals who had, I think, the most misaligned
Mm-hmm.
salary. That's when the mayor went back for those two individuals specifically.
Yeah.
And then we had the council action that took place in September, with the pay bands being approved. And I think, I know council was made aware of that via, I believe Council President Smith we confirmed that with him, as well as the mayor. And then the mayor going back to council during the budget process and requesting those lump sums to, again, try to bring two of those individuals more in line with what the average actual was for that position across their respective
Yeah, I
colleagues in other
don't have
jurisdictions.
any big issue with that.
No, it's.
I remember making those adjustments on people.
But we're happy to go back. I'm a lot of the work is going to be Kelly and, or finance. But we can go back and lay out the preceding 10 or more years.
Yeah, and that's, honestly, that's not, I would like that to happen.
Because I think
But
the
if I'm
perception
reading-
or the interpretation has been, as Councilman McCarthy said, in the heads of the non-bargaining unit people here, and what was passed on to me, is that it's a calendar year. We've always done it on a calendar year. That's been the interpretation and the precedent and the practice.
I would say, looking at this code, I think that's a very friendly interpretation. Because this is the type of language I would use in a contract to prevent someone from doing the same thing twice in a 12-month period. That's the language I would use. So realistically, what I would like to see, and I think, and I'll just say it for the record, I think I've been an advocate for making sure we're competitive as far as pay goes, and I want
Absolutely.
our employees to get cost of living increases. My main hiccup here is
Do we need the code clarified for going forward?
I think, yeah, if it's gonna be calendar year and we wanna adopt that and take that before council, I think that's
calendar year
appropriate.
makes sense because we are on a fiscal year and that's typically how we're budgeting.
And our fiscal year is January through December.
Yep.
See, and I don't know that I necessarily support calendar year, because I view it as, when you're doing it in every 12 months, it's a good check-in. Because you can do it, if you're the same timeline every year, you don't even need to come before council. But if we have extenuating circumstances like we did in 2021, where we didn't necessarily want to make those adjustments because we were bargaining, and I get that. But you
I
also.
do foresee extenuating circumstances coming up in the near future that we would definitely be coming back to council.
Well, and that's what, I guess what I'm saying is, to me, I look at this and what was the fear of coming before council with this, just to cross our Ts and dot our Is, and
I'm
I'm
going back to the past practice and the history, and that the mayors today and two back at least have felt that giving 7% within a calendar year was within their purview.
I get that, but at the same time, we're talking about how 2021 was a very different year. So
And
they're
and I think the
conflicting
mayor felt
ideas.
that he came before council appropriately in those couple odd instances. So I think he felt that he was still staying within his lane, so to speak. But if we need
I
the
just-
clarification on the 12-month period, what is that 12-month period?
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I guess, my thought, I think in many cases, I think all of us do, right? We have to answer to the residents and to the taxpayers. I think, if anyone's paying attention to this, I don't know anybody that gets that type of raise within a year time. And while it may be justified, I don't know if it's necessarily, let me try to, I don't want to continue out with a problem here. I like to try to provide or maybe come up with a correction or solution for this. Now, regards to the pay bands, those were created for some kind of consistency, correct? Create some sort of consistency, I mean.
And be
Create
competitive.
ranges that would allow flexibility within that range for people to be hired in that have experience, a greater level of experience than maybe the minimum, as well as to be able to, as Kelly mentioned, there's several staff who, over the last 5 or so years, actually never received an increase because they were at the top of their wage scale for that position, because each position had a separate wage range for it. There wasn't like groupings of similar positions with similar responsibilities and duties. So that's what was created last September with the help of an outside consultant. So that allowed for flexibility for recruitment and to a certain extent retention, because if somebody's here for 5 years and doesn't get a raise, they can certainly go somewhere else.
Probably would and would want to.
And we have had people who have done that, and they've gone to the city of Maumee. Conversely, we've had people come from other jurisdictions here. But that was one of the main goals of having that evaluation. that council was supportive of, is to create some sort of compensation system that made sense for today, not something that was created, oh, I don't know,
2005, 2008.
and then was never adjusted.
Minimal updates.
Either the lower or the upper end of those ranges per position were never adjusted on an annual basis, on a biannual basis, unless we specifically came to council because we were having a problem hiring a certain position. So even though there was conversation, I think back in 2005 or whenever that was, that hey, every other year every year we're gonna take the CPI and adjust the ranges for each position, that never happened. I came from a place where the same thing happened. I mean, once you said it, you're thinking about forgetting it, but you can't because the market is shifting. And as we know, the market is shifting way faster than many people can keep up with. So that was kind of like the purpose of bringing somebody in. They looked at not only our region, but they looked broader throughout the state of Ohio, trying to find like positions to kind of put those together to see what the average salary was for that position as of last spring, essentially, a year ago, and to help create those pay bands with similar duties, responsibilities, the A through E. And that was accomplished, and that was a great improvement. Staff appreciated it. Michelle Fon's appreciating it when she's out there trying to hire somebody. That's helped a lot. But again, back to this, I think everybody is definitely within their pay band range. And again, if it's been an interpretation issue on administrations and past and current, that can certainly be fixed on what that 12-month is.
Yeah,
Corey, if I may, just
Yeah,
kind
I'm
of
sorry.
finish what I was getting to with that, I guess with the potential pay increases, if we show that there's even some consistency with that, I mean, just because there's a 7% allowance doesn't mean we need to continually max that out, I guess.
I will tell you honestly that in my tenure here, this has never happened.
Okay.
There's either been years of no raises for whatever reasons, because there was timing issues with a new mayor coming in, not knowing what the performance was of the employees for the preceding year in order to allocate or feel comfortable allocating an increase. That's happened twice since I've been here. But typically, it has been somewhere in the range of, and Kelly, please correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere between that 2.5 up to 4, with maybe 1 or 2 outliers for, I'll say, incredible work on that person's part. That's been the typical year.
And I guess that's what you just mentioned, now we've done something that we haven't done before, and that's kind of goes back to why this may be an issue. And I feel that if there was some consistency, while you can easily change the language in the code, I feel, I don't know, I feel like if there's
And when you say consistency.
in regards to wage increases, so you
Consistent
mentioned,
with,
I don't know, I mean, right now you mentioned, I don't know, you mentioned collective bargaining, so that's kind of, I asked, what was it, 2.5%? No, on a consistent or regular basis, somewhere around there, I'm sure it's up or down, maybe a little bit here or there, depending on the year. You know, is there any, I guess, could you parallel that? I mean, not 2.5, maybe that's not, obviously in this case, that wouldn't have been enough, but just to develop some consistency in pay raises annually, so. I mean, again, I just have a problem with maxing things out continually, just because it's there doesn't mean
you will not find Mayor Mackin consistently maxing things out just for the sake of them being there. That's not him at all, and I'm sure Mr. McCarthy can attest to that.
I don't think, Kevin, if you look back, I don't think Mike Olmsted did, and
No.
I'm trying to think to myself, there probably have been some, but I don't remember any 7% plus raise coming to us for special consideration, and typically, it's what you said, the raises were typically in some general percentage range, or some resemblance to the bargaining units. With deviations, some people getting a little bit less based on performance.
And or a little bit more if there was something
But it
exceptional.
wasn't, no, I don't think any of the mayors have pushed it up to that 7% limit. I know Nelson didn't, Mike didn't,
And
Tom
Mayor
hasn't.
Mackin has not.
I told Kara I gotta go, but I just wanted to throw in one quick question, Kevin, before, as I run out the door. On the merit 2% in 2022, I can't do the math real quick, but it looks, does this mean everyone got 2%? Because some of these numbers look less than
And
2%.
this, on the first page?
No, second. This is kind of a, it's not an issue, it's a different,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
see, you know, if you.
I believe that 2% was on the current salary at the time.
But I mean, merit, was 2% the guideline, or did everyone get 2%?
Everybody did not get 2%, but that was the standard if their performance appraisal came back good.
Okay. And I see Alice and Rudy didn't get any merit increase.
Correct,
So it's 2% or under for the merit?
yes.
Okay, if,
And I can't,
just to help with understanding that, can we get what percentage they receive?
But anybody that's in this column with a number, it is that 2% unless it's blank.
It's not, okay, so it is a
It is,
blanket
okay.
too. So which calculations are you having, do you feel are off?
well, look at there's $918 on someone with a salary of just shy of 46,000.
I'm doing the math right
2%.
now.
That's 2%.
Is that two?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I said, I can't do the math.
Yeah, yeah.
that fast.
We did have our finance director check these.
Yeah, it looks like an Excel drop of
Okay,
2% to
okay,
me.
yeah, I guess that does make sense, because if you're at 50,000,
1,000.
yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah.
about 1,000, so, all right.
And the merit is on that current base, not
Mhm.
on adding a cost of living and then.
Yeah, I got you.
So it's not compounded.
Okay. And the only one a little bit above, you explained this number.
Correct, and that was a
To at least get them
compression,
ahead of.
compression issue with the captains that he supervises.
Quickly before, and I'm gonna have more comments after this,
Sure.
but before you leave, what I would propose is that they have a legislative item before council that's retroactive to the date that the mayor had signed it into effect
On,
for these wage increases to be considered.
oh,
Just to be safe, and I don't necessarily, and it's not for the purpose of not giving these raises out, it's, I want to do it the way it's supposed to be done, in my perception, and while that's ambiguous, because I think at very best, that's what it is right now, at least have council approve of the increase as well.
yeah, I'd be okay with that. Just-
Kind of like the motion that was done at
Yes.
the beginning of the year for those two individuals.
Yes.
Yeah, that would,
I would like no one to have any reason to suggest that these people didn't get the raises the proper way.
yeah, that's.
And I would like to, yeah.
And then we gotta come up with some understanding, once you get us that information about how it increases.
Yes.
Whether it is calendar year that you can, you know, I mean, because, as Kevin said, a lot of people. it's-
Yeah, and if there's better language, whatever it is, to clarify it, great.
But, you know, John Q. Citizen isn't getting a 10% raise over a 4 or 5 month period.
Yeah, and I think it's a hot button issue for us in particular. These are the types of things that we get questions about when they read about it. So
If
it's,
it gets out,
yeah. And I know that making a legislative item will make it get out, but I still want to do it the correct way. And we hopefully
can write
have the
up-
reasoning behind it in that meeting to
We can
justify
write
those
up
reasons.
a motion and maybe send it to you, Mr. Coleman, for review.
Yeah, I think it has to be a written action,
Yeah.
would be my understanding.
I know that when we did those two lump sums, I think Mr. Smith made a motion, and then the motion goes into the minutes.
I would be more comfortable, because I mean, after reading the interpretation on the water tower where we made a motion, we required a written action for the finance department to take action.
For the functional contract, yes.
So
Which
I
is
would-
the same on any contract that we amend.
So I would
We
just-
we can do it whichever way you prefer.
I think it should be written, or a written legislative item. That would be my
Resolution?
perception of it, yeah. Especially, I want to memorial, if we're talking about spending the city's money, I think it's better if we memorialize it.
Okay.
And then you can get going if you want
No, no,
to.
I don't want to get a ticket.
So one of my question is the mayor, I know the mayor's ultimately responsible. I assume he's getting some guidance on,
He
On-
received all the performance appraisals that were submitted.
because when we do that, and I'm sure you sense some of my frustration. What I viewed the pay band conversation as and the increase conversation is making sure we're working together to make sure we're competitive and make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to these raises. So even, and that's why I've continued to ask, even if it's not up above that 7%, I would like on personnel committee to be aware of what those are and hear the justification for those raises, because I think it's just us doing our due diligence as council people, and making sure we can support you and hey, yeah, no, I did look at those raises. This is why they're doing it. We had a negotiating year. This is why those two happened back to back. So I think that open dialogue is really important, especially with personnel. And the
I will
increases.
absolutely pass that along.
Yeah, because I don't know, I'm sorry.
Well, what I was going to say is in the future, if Tom is ultimately the one that's signing off on that, I plan on doing this type of committee meeting each year, whether we're doing raises or not, to evaluate salaries.
I think the goal, is, now that we're through last year, the goal is at the end of every year to start the appraisal process and have that done by the first quarter of each year.
Okay, and I think that would be an appropriate time to
Because
come
that then
before council.
coincides with what should be happening on the collective bargaining side, unless we get into a year where we have one group that ends up at arbitration that kind of,
Right,
that
throws it
might
off.
throw things off. a
Well,
little
and
bit.
so I think while obviously this was put together and analyzed before the mayor enacted it, I think that would be a good time to come before personnel and invite the mayor to talk about these raises. And I understand that they can move forward with those without our consent. I would just like to understand them because
It'd be
ultimately,
great to have them here.
yeah, it works a lot better if we're on the same page. This is that checks and balances thing. I just want to understand it, so if someone asks me on the street,
You can,
hey, what's
yeah,
going
you
on?
can speak to it.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at too, is, we get questions like this, and if I don't have those, I didn't have the detailed answers to provide them that you provided this evening, so for us and for our sake, that will improve that process, I think.
Okay, I've made notes and I will make sure I have a conversation with the mayor tomorrow.
Okay, and then if the administration, what I would suggest is perhaps for the next committee meeting, if there is a functional reason to change that code to clarify it, feel free to present that to this committee.
Okay, I will ask the law director to help work with me, and we'll put our heads together on what may be some logical language, and we can certainly run it past you, Councilman Coleman.
Yeah, and I honestly think it would make more sense for it to be talked about next meeting after hopefully we've had something come before council,
Okay.
and that way there is no conflict
So
talking.
we'll add that to the agenda for next month.
Okay, perfect. Are you satisfied with that
Yeah,
section?
yeah, I am.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on clarifying that language?
If it's fiscal year, I would just change it to the mayor may increase once per calendar year. And then you can put Jan 1 to December 31st in any given year, once, as long as it's below 7% without going before council. So very similar language. If that's, because that would be very clear to me that that's calendar year.
That's very, very clear.
Because realistically, when I read that 12-month language, I look at anytime it happens twice in 12 months, it's a red flag with that provision as it reads in my perception of things now. So, but I think that would be the best way to accomplish.
So at 2% in January and at 2% in June, how does that, how does that work with?
See, now, that's interesting, because I don't know, because the mayor is able to do, I guess we approve the bargaining, but we're able to do retroactive.
Well,
So it could be
let's-
any amount of raises as long as it does not exceed. You could do something with the language. I know I said once, I assumed most of these raises are gonna just be once a year.
Typically, like I said, typically it is, but a lot of times prior to collective bargaining, because we know historically that collective bargaining process doesn't last a week.
Yeah,
In some cases, it lasts 8 or 9 months. And then,
so you'll do the merit before and then the
so
cost of living
the
after.
mayor had done some small part beforehand, waited till that process shook itself out.
And feel free to enumerate that however you would like the
Okay.
code proposal to
Well,
be.
well,
I think there's
think on that
very
to try
crafty
and make
ways
it
to make it
bulletproof.
explicit, yeah.
okay.
And just keep it, I would say that 7% number. While I naturally think it's high, I have no interest in changing that number. At least me personally.
And I recognize the thought, like, well, could somebody come in and say, okay, I'm not gonna do any raises till December, and then I'll do this large raise in December that's meant to go all the way back to the beginning of the year, but then in January, go, okay, I'm gonna do it now, and that's meant for the whole year going forward. So I recognize that.
Yeah.
Let me think on that.
So, and I get 2021 was a weird year, but that's to me more of a reason to have it go before council.
And we'll lay out, like I said, the prior years, because I think it'll be maybe a clearer picture, maybe give you a little bit, at least better feeling where we were coming from on that.
And honestly, I don't anticipate much conversation at the actual council meeting about it, about that code provision, at least not from me.
It's a
There may be
clarification.
questions or explanation on the raise,
I
the
mean,
current
we've
raise.
done so many 266 code revisions for clarification, in some instances for modification. It's just another modification.
But you're exactly right. This could have been it could have been a 14% increase that we're talking about, rather than, it does look like some people got 9 or 10, which I understand. I'm not.
And I guess in the instance of where there were years where, say you had a new mayor or something like that, or where you, Kelly mentioned, they didn't have raises. I guess going back again to that, I guess that thought of like consistency, I know that kind of changes this wording entirely. But I mean, just at a certain time each year where they would potentially get that annual raise, right?
It used to be, when Nelson was here, it was always the first one of March. Even if we didn't get them assigned until August, they were retroactive. Barrelstead didn't do that. It was later in the fall, September, October, November. And those were not retroactive. And they're back in a little more, you know.
So when he came in, he didn't know he didn't know all the staff. So that first year, there were no raises. And then I think the following year, it may have been, or May-ish. But we'll be able to track that and put it in
Yeah,
the
I think it's perfect for you guys to craft that legislation and present to us exactly
Okay.
why you're thinking what you're thinking. I think that's the best way to go
Yeah,
about
then we
it.
had COVID and all that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can certainly do that, and we will put legislation together for upcoming council meeting for that action.
Because I do, and I hope you guys feel it too, that I would like to constantly be reviewing to make sure we're competitive as far as personnel and that we're
Well,
not
and
having.
our goal with this mayor and any mayor going forward is to have it be more consolidated once a year, unless there's something unusual happening. I mean,
Right.
I understand that during collective bargaining, some things can get a little crazy
Yeah.
and lengthy in discussion.
Yeah, but I think, especially the three of us working through those wage bands knows that if you don't revisit this often enough, you end up with a nightmare, and I just want to prevent that.
I've already been thinking on how to get that
Yeah.
updated for this year, bring something to
Perfect.
personnel.
Perfect. With that, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So permission to purchase vehicle for the new occupational safety and health coordinator.
So prior to your arrival, Councilman Coleman, Councilman
Yeah,
Kirby.
we know something.
Councilman McCarthy took
Yeah.
the chair, took the helm.
Yeah,
And as we explained, this is for the new individual that was hired last week. It's a Ford Escape, it's on state contracts. This will allow them to go to the various buildings in the city, as well as job sites that are city job sites, to oversee and make sure people are setting up work zones properly, using shoring and trenching properly, assisting them in doing that if that's the case. So it's.
is it City of Perrysburg logo on it?
It will have the new City of Perrysburg.
Okay, does it have like an occupational health and safety sticker?
We haven't
thought that far.
thought that far,
Okay.
but we can certainly do that, because the other ones are like either labeled City of Perrysburg Public Utilities, City of Perrysburg
Yeah.
Public Service, so we can certainly do
I
that.
would love those vehicles to kind of identify who those individuals are, because I think the presence is good to see when you're driving around and you see a service vehicle there at the park or handling something. It's nice to know that there's a presence or a person to ask questions. So that'd be my one thing. And then But how much is the escape? So like,
It's 25,000,
oh,
and just like 25,375.
okay, cool. All right, and did we see if local would match on that?
No, it's state contract, I don't know
Is
that.
Because I know Brody was having trouble getting our local dealerships to match when they had previously. I just want to make sure we continue to ask.
I think I mean, for them, I understand why that would be a challenge, given the amount of cars on lots.
Yeah,
Obviously, they want to command as much as they can for those cars, but I think Chief Jones helped Kelly with this selection and purchase, so I can go ask him.
okay. And if it didn't happen this time, that's fine, let's move it forward, let's get that person a vehicle. But I would, if we can shop local and they're willing to match what we're purchasing, it's great. With those state bids,
We will certainly ask Chief Jones.
great. And then other business, the only thing I thought I'd added to the agenda, but that was me talking to Elaine, so this is on me. Just an update on the deputy city administrator status. Any updates?
No, that's right, that was not on there. So we're currently starting our program with J. Raymond Consultants. We're organizational and leadership consultants. So we are actually, all of our senior staff are engaged in that next week. And they're going to help us move forward with looking at our organization and also looking at the gaps in our organization in terms of seats, our hierarchy, leadership training, communication training. So that starts next week, and so we're very excited. It's a short program. I believe he says once he starts, him and his wife start, it's like 5 weeks altogether to wrap it up. So we'll report in at the next meeting and give you an update.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just want to keep that on my radar because I think it's important because we're budgeted for it to evaluate whether we're taking it out of the budget or moving forward with filling something. So, do you have anything else?
Yeah, just, I know, I think it was 2 months ago, and I mentioned that potential position, I think Ed refers to kind of like a wage enforcement individual, kind of position that would have paid for itself. So I just to mention, the city of Rossford actually appointed a person, his title is a compliance coordinator. Does deal with tax, not just tax code, but some other things, enforcement.
I can reach out to them. I know we've had our finance director and our income tax commissioner looking at what the city of Toledo is doing, so I can get a report in from her on that.
Okay. Because again, I think it's one of those positions that may pay for itself, especially while we're going through this process of, people working from home. I think I mentioned that before. I see it often in the construction industry where people are here for a long period of time, don't pay taxes. They're not paying taxes here locally. But I think that individual, that role may pay for itself and then some. So.
I will check in and I'll report in, I'll send an email out to the committee.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Any further business from you or Kelly?
None here?
All right, with that, we'll adjourn.